All right, everybody, we are live here on Tuesday night. Welcome to the Dr. Boz show, and I'm super excited about tonight's show, but I could use a little prayer. So if you've ever just said, I'm going to be brave about telling people about myself, that would be what tonight's about. It is a incredible story to tell, and I hope I can pull it off. So here we go. Thank you for the sound, Gina. I really needed to know that. I am going to check numbers before we get started, because if you didn't see in the thumbnail, I'm going to tell you a story about my husband. Yeah, he doesn't usually watch the show. In fact, it's a rare moment when he watches the show, but he might tonight, because I needed his permission to do this show, because it's like almost exclusively about, well, what I've done to him. He's been the person that I've been coaching for and telling what to do the longest, and he still hasn't run away. Yeah, ketones 2.2 and glucose 60. I can feel it, and I'm hungry. If you haven't signed up for our newsletter, those of you that have know that we have been doing a sardine challenge. And that sardine challenge landed at a time when, well, I honestly wasn't expecting it. I mean, I was expecting it, but we expected it last week, and we planned to do this, and it was going to come out, and then, well, then Woman's World came out, so we changed the timing of our emails, and we launched it on Friday saying, let's do the sardine challenge. It starts Monday for 72 hours. And what I didn't think about is, oh wait, my 25th wedding anniversary is during those 72 hours. Honey, will you join me? So I bring home that announcement, and he said yes to doing sardines with me. And it's not the first time that I've been a little nervous to ask questions going, oh, I'm about to talk him into this, and I know I can win. I am really good at winning. And so is he. So tonight we are going to tell you some stories about the Dr. Boz, 25 years of marriage, and the person that I've been coaching the longest. So husband, if you are watching, wait till the end. For those of you that are new to the channel, you should also wait to the end, because I've been counting down to something and sharing something in my support group that I do each Tuesday, and you're going to want it. You're going to want to see this, because I'm only going to say it once at the end of the show, and then I'm not going to say it again for like a month or two, or maybe never. But we're going to try something that we've been working on in person, and stick around to the end. So let's get started with a couple of slides. So in the chat, if you've been married and you've celebrated some trips around the sun together, please tell me how long you've been married. While you're at it, if you're in my sardine challenge, if you're in that little group that got the emails and said yes, give a little, I think you can pick the fish emoji. It's called the sardine emoji, to just let us know who's in the sardine challenge with us. I'm gonna try to eat these sardines, which I got gifted today at my support group. I've never had this kind before, but I'm hungry, and I also forgot a fork, so I'm gonna be eating out of a can with my tongue depressor here at the office. Don't judge me, it does work, and I am hungry. Ooh, really good. And the ingredients on that sardine is it's awesome. It just has sardines, olive oil, and some spices. Oh, look at all the people who've been married. Yay. Oh, well, you're going to love this. All right, so here we go. Let's go over, and we're going to get to the discussion about what that thumbnail said, which is the moment I told my husband that his weight was embarrassing. Yeah, so punchline, we're still married, but let's unpack this together. So I'm going to go over to my, here we go. All right, so here is a picture of us on our wedding day. And this will give you a little bit of insight into the marriage of Chad and Annette. So Chad and Annette in that picture right there. I am done with medical school. I have scheduled a weekend for getting married, and I start work Monday morning in Salt Lake City, Utah at LDS Hospital in the emergency room. My residency was going to begin. My husband was going to move out to Utah sometime in the next 6 months when a house was, or the place where we were living could be moved into. It was a little condo in Park City. And so I was going to be a bride working all the time, and this was our wedding day. This is a piece of land that we bought as a couple from somebody in our family, and we went to the land and we took a picture of it. It's my favorite wedding picture because it's us. It's a it's a crop of beans. But before that wedding night happened, there's quite a backstory of well, dating. But on the wedding day, I'll tell you one of my favorite moments from the wedding was the toast that my husband gave. So I'm from a small town, and when I say small, I don't think you're imagining quite how small it is. That small town is 800 people, population 800, K through 12 in one school building, all in one building. And well, I was a pretty extroverted girl, and so my husband comes and he makes this toast at our wedding. We got married in the church where my grandparents had been part of, my parents had been part of for years, and then we had our reception at the farm. And so we're at the farm, we're in the barn where we had set up everything, and I had delegated a whole bunch of things for this wedding to happen because I was like, I got the guy that matches, the rest of this is a detail. And for anybody that knows me, well, that's absolutely how I approach a lot of things. Like the big picture's covered, these are details. And maybe I ignore those details a little too much sometimes. But in this case, I said, husband, there's supposed to be these little things that go on a wedding cake, apparently. Can you get a couple of those so that the wedding cake has those things on it? He's like, you mean like figurines? I'm like, sure, something like that. So we get to the wedding and we're in the barn and there's a spotlight on my husband. He says, I'd like to make a toast to my cute little bride. And I'm like, he doesn't ever talk like that. I'm like, he said, for those of you that think you know, your hometown cheerleader, homecoming queen, I have news for you. I've dated her now for over 3 years, and I'm here to tell you that if you're not careful, if she's headed for something and you're in her way, she will bulldoze right over you. And the spotlight goes over the wedding cake, and there sits a groom and a bulldozer. And one person stood up in the room and started clapping. And it was my mother who said, oh my God, he knows what he's marrying. So that's how this wedding started. That's how this, oops, that's not what I wanted. Relationship started June 27th, 1998. And as you can see, we are both not in the best of health. That he had been a salesman for a really good salesman. And every time he sold one of his big semi trucks, the guy wanted, part of the deal was to go have a steak dinner. And he sold a lot of semi trucks. So he had a lot of steak dinners. But it's also the marriage between a firstborn female and a firstborn male. And if you have any history, if you have any awareness of psychology, a firstborn marrying a firstborn, well, there's some issues. The issues usually are that firstborns tend to want to be in charge. In fact, when I first met my husband, he saw me at a bar. He was with his sister. His sister was in my sorority, and she said, he said, who is that? And his sister says, you do not want to know her. She's a total nerd and she studies all the time. The next conversation I know, there's this new boy in our house. That's a house boy in the sorority, which means they help serve the meals. And he had gotten a job with the house mother because he smoked cigarettes with the house mother, and it was totally naughty. Like he broke a bunch of rules. He didn't follow through, and he was a little rude. And this boy had found out that I am never on time for supper, and I have to eat with the house staff because unless you're there to sing the prayer with the house mother in the sorority, you don't get to eat with the house mother, so you eat with the staff, and I was never on time. So there starts this, well, it's a date, essentially, because I'm the only one in the kitchen, and he's the only one in the kitchen, and I'm eating supper, and this weird, irritating, very cocky boy is, well, he's irritating me. But I want supper. So this happens for the better part of a year, at which point he touches on one of my nerves that he'd asked me for a date several times. I said, nope, I'm at the library, come to the library. And he would say things like, no, I'm too cool for the library. Let's go do something. I'm like, no. And I was really snotty to him. But I also know how to say no to a guy to make him never ask again. So clearly there was something about this guy that I kept fighting with and I could not win every argument with. And that was a little strange for me at the time. I was the firstborn in a farming family, and I think my dad prayed for a boy because I came out really bossy. And that was, well, it's not always easy to be married to a bossy girl. Ask me 25 years later, because after this wedding, let me show you the next of these slides. After this wedding and this firstborn female, and he knows he's marrying a, well, let me finish the dating thing. So yes, he tries to ask me out every night for a year, and I tell him no. And clearly he's still asking. He has arranged for everybody in my friend group to go on spring break together my senior year of college. And I've never been on spring break, but I was going to go my senior year, and I'd saved up and I was ready to go. And everybody's going to Acapulco, and I couldn't even tell you where that was on the map. But Chad's at Acapulco, and he's with all my friends. So we hang out for the week of spring break. It was the funnest week ever. And when we get back, I clearly am interested in this guy, but I really don't want to admit that because he has some things on his checklist that I just can't date. He's overweight and he smokes cigarettes. So I'm sure that's why I've been telling him no for a year. But clearly something was different. So I said, well, I'll make you a bet that you can't quit smoking. And he says, oh, how does that work? And I'm standing in the spot on the sidewalk. I can drive to the spot right now because it was so embarrassing for me. What happens next? He says, how does that bet work? And I said, well, what's the prize for the bet? That's what he asked. And I said, well, it's a date with me. And he goes, okay, how would that work? And I said, well, I suppose the loser pays for the date. And I'm, broke. That seems like the most important part of the date, right? And he grabs this pack of cigarettes out of his chest pocket and he looks at it and I think, oh, he's going to quit smoking. And he lights it up and says, I lose. Where you want to go? And I'm like, no, I have totally just been outsmarted by a boy in front of all of my friends. And I still get goosebumps thinking about it because it was super, I just fell right into that trap. And I just said it in front of all my friends. So I'm trying to think of the most exotic place that I could possibly come up with. And I say Paris. the date's in Paris. And he doesn't even blink an eye. And I'm like, oh, shit. So it turns out we didn't have time to go to Paris then, but it begins a relationship. And 4 years later, he flies me to Paris and proposes on the Eiffel Tower. So that's how this starts. And when you look at that firstborn marrying a firstborn, this is the wedding day. And after a few years of being married, he had lost a little bit of weight. And I was still working really hard and trying to manage all. Actually, I don't know if that was 2005. I know that, oh yeah, here. It was 2003. So we had our first baby in 2000. He's standing there, and his little brother is due in a few days. And you can see that I am not the prettiest pregnant person, but I was actually really happy to be able to find pictures of me pregnant. And so turns out whenever I put on weight for pregnancy, my sweet husband did too. And the process of adding weight and adding weight and adding weight turns into this. So it's 2003. I'm seeing in your chat, somebody says, did he quit smoking? I'm like, oh yeah. I said, you get that I said yes to, I mean, he quit smoking before we got married. Yes, that's what happened. There's a longer story to it, but yes. And he has continued to be, he says he's on a pause for smoking and he's going to pick it up again when he's 80. He said that was easier to deal with. All right, so here's husband at the end of 2003. And I know this picture really well because this is the day, or at least in the month, that this story happened. He's actually on the Dr. Phil show with me. And the month before that is when this moment happened in our relationship where I'm 3 years into my being a physician and I am, really trying to do what it is I want to be great at, but I am struggling. I am struggling to lose weight. I am struggling to keep it together with kids and a career and a marriage. And how do you do it all? I mean, the examples out there where there were a lot of strong women, most of them were divorced. And I didn't want that. I really wanted to find a way forward to that. So getting these two strong individuals to get along and have a family and be, two firstborns have lots of passion. And a lot of that passion is with fighting. So how do I fight through and not give up who I feel true to, who I think God made me to be, without hurting him? And I knew that a gentle nudge of we should lose weight, we should get healthier, we should try harder. Yeah, that was not working. That's not how our relationship works. And one day I came home and I chose this option. And I said this morning in our support group, and everybody gasped when I said, this is what I told my husband. I said, husband, have you ever been to a dentist who doesn't have teeth? And he's like, who would do that? I said, it's the equivalent of going to a physician whose family is fat. Your weight is embarrassing. We need to fix it. Yeah, it's not easy to be married to me. I am happy that we are still at this 25 years later, and we are still pretty passionate about how we fight and how we live our lives. But that discussion was actually before I met this author. By met, I mean read his stuff. Friedman is the author. And this isn't the book I was looking for, but Friedman Fables, if you're ever looking for a good sermon or story, or his fables are awesome. But he writes a book about failure of nerve. And in there, he's a rabbi who is in charge of how do you get families who make these same patterns of behavior to blend without cracking. And that's not easy. If you've ever tried to counsel people or been in a family that's cracking, it's really easy to fight. It's really easy to run away. It's really easy to stop talking. And when you're in a situation like I was, where I wanted to change something about him, and how do you do that? What's the rules for changing your spouse and making him do what you want? Well, there's two rules that stand the test of time. Number one is work on you. This is from Friedman and his failure of nerve. This is his major punchlines for the book, and the book is great. But it's about leadership and how do you do it in a way that you can be strong and true to yourself and true to your God without hurting the people around you, like letting them own this. It's a great book. But the two rules of how do you change somebody else is, number one, keep working on you. And number two, do not become disconnected from the people you want to change. Meaning, if you are disowning somebody and never speaking to them, but you're working on you, it's not going to change their behavior. So this conversation started with, husband, that's embarrassing. And that connected to him. And as his wife, I knew that would connect to him. But it was in a way that I don't know that I could be brave enough to do that again. We were two young kids trying to figure it out then, and we had young kids. And that picture, because the next month, I'm trying to figure out, how do I coach patients to do this better? How do I help my husband do this better? And I hadn't read about Friedman yet. So I was trying to tell him what to do. And, well, we land on the Dr. Phil show. I'll let you guys Google that one. Let's move on to, that was the low point in our relationship where I said this. Now we'll get to the high at the end, but at this moment where I said, well, I've been telling my husband how to do a ketogenic diet since 2003. We did not call it that, but we started with 3 rules that will change metabolism. And they are great rules for taking people who are overweight. And especially if you're like my husband, who grew up in a family where Coca-Cola was in one of the first drinks he ever drank. One of the most satisfying things to him is a drink of Coca-Cola. He was actually a college swimmer before he started selling trucks with his dad, which he's started selling lots of trucks, and which meant steak dinners, and then cigarettes ended up to be the way you stayed awake when you drove a truck across the country for 2 days without sleeping. Anyway, that's a different story. So number 1 rule that we put into place was no calories in your drinks. So he's like, okay, how do I lose weight? You're the doctor. And I'm like, well, they didn't teach me that in medical school, which is how I started following Dr. Phil, because it was the year where he was doing like The Biggest Loser, but it wasn't called that then. So number 1, no calories in your drinks. And I think he took off 60 pounds just doing that. But the other 2 rules were that the temperature of the house needs to stimulate your metabolism, meaning it should be cold at night where you are generating heat, and just changing the temperature of your house can really do that. Or you shouldn't try to make it the perfect temperature for you, leaving the warmth where you have to, to the point where you break a sweat is not a bad thing. He still isn't convinced that the sweating thing is a good thing for the house. He does do the sauna with me, but that take the temperature of the house and make it colder. It does stimulate your metabolism just a little bit. And then the 3rd rule that we had was the size of our plates in our house. We're going from, well, we used to say these plates are the size of our head, and he has a really big head. So we said, no, we're not having the big plates like that. We decreased the size of our plates. Now, there were other things that happened, but that's what happened at the beginning of this journey of me telling him what to do. Within a year, you can see that baby is born, boy number 2, and there's husband who's clearly down by like, I don't know, 80 pounds. And when he was on the Dr. Phil show, or right before the Dr. Phil show, I think he was pushing 300. And his ideal weight is somewhere around 170. I think that he's around 170 now, or somewhere in that range. All right, so a couple years go by and we do a little bit better, and we continue to stay married. And this is baby number 3. And as you can see, I'm no easier having a pregnancy the 3rd time around. It's just that there's now 2 little boys to chase around, and we are now, not quite 10 years into our marriage, but we've got plenty of weight that's been put on. And once again, when I put on weight for my pregnancy, my husband helps me put on that weight by eating right along with me. And you'll notice in this other picture is his dad. So his dad is got, well, some of those family patterns that Friedman writes about when you're trying to improve some patterns in your family, but you're having a tough time. You're having a tough time saying out loud, what am I doing? What do we do that's different than other families? What are we doing that's wrong? As Grandpa Denton, his dad's name was Denton, kept traveling around the sun, his weight kept going higher and higher, higher and higher. And this is baby number 3, who by the time even this baptism happened, a bunch of my weight had come off, a bunch of his weight had come off. So you can even see that 6 weeks later from when we had the baptism for Chancellor. And look at that red hair. Yes, the baby with red hair. That was mine. So now we are 2006. We've got 2 older brothers who are helping us with baby number 3. There's just a reminder what Grandpa Denton looked like at the time. And by now, 6 months into Chancellor's life, he's back down to his weight. By 2007, some of the weight's coming back. You can see that picture in the corner where he's okay. We're all okay. And these 3 rules of cutting out carbohydrates, all calories and drinks, the temperature of our house, and then the plate size had helped. By this point, he's actually done fasting a couple of times, which I think is ridiculous. I think it's crazy. One time he fasted for a really long time. Like, I want to say it was 70 days. I was bringing home IVs saying, "You're dying. This is stupid." I wasn't stupid. I was wrong. But the way he did it could have been a lot better. And he could have been nicer to his wife and told me what he was doing. He just didn't eat. And then what happened in 2010? We moved back to South Dakota. I had my practice there in South Dakota, and I had decided I couldn't do corporate medicine anymore, and corporate medicine said they didn't want me anymore. So my husband, it was a really tough time for me because I'd never been kicked out of anything, and I couldn't believe that medicine, couldn't see what I wanted to do. It was actually really hard for me, and I was very depressed. And my husband, as we were sitting in church, the earthquake in Haiti had happened. And he signed us up for the dang earthquake to go serve as people to help the people who just suffered through an earthquake. And I'm like, Chad, I don't even know where Haiti is. I don't know what to do in an earthquake. And, if there's ever been a moment where God takes over your vocal cords and you cannot answer the way you want to, it was that. This lady calls me, and she's from a mission group, and she says, "It says on this form here you're a doctor. What kind of doctor are you?" And I'm like, I had no idea who she was. Why am I on this phone with this lady? And I said, "Well, a good one." And she goes, "Well, we need you in Haiti. And your husband says you're going to come to Haiti." And I'm like, And she goes, "Well, you pray about it and I'll call you tomorrow." And she hangs up the phone. And I was so mad. I absolutely was not going to do this. I had a speech ready for that lady. I had a speech ready for my husband. I was not going to do it. And then the lady called back the next day, and she's like, "How's that conversation with God going?" And every part of me wanted to say, "No way, I am not qualified to do this." I could not make it. I couldn't make myself say it. And by golly, the next week, we end up in Haiti. I don't know what I'm doing, but there's this picture of us in Haiti. And this is the second trip, because the first trip was, it was a nightmare. I don't even think we brought a camera. I brought a book about what infections are in Haiti, and it was like 4 pages long. It was like nothing. But this is when we went back afterwards where I said, Chad, I could have done so much better. I wasn't prepared. And everything I was missing in my passion for what I wanted in medicine, I had found in serving these people who just needed, they needed God, and God sent me for that trip, and Chad was the one right by my side. But you can see he's got the weight off. He's doing great. The billboards around Haiti at the time, Haitian people are black, right? And there's billboards of this Haitian president who shaves his head, and because the billboards were faded, it looked just like my husband. So everywhere we went, these people would come up and say, Maraldi, or something like that, the president's name. So he looks just like the president. We're in Haiti, and it was amazing. It was amazing what happened. And we ended up going back to Haiti over 30 times. And we take our kids and we start doing, acts of service with them. And you can see that the older boys are able to go, and we wouldn't let Chancellor go until he was 6. So now this is when Chancellor gets to go. He was so proud of himself for getting to go to Haiti and help Mom and Dad with the people in Haiti. And really, I don't know how this gets into a story about being married for 25 years, but it is incredible when you start to measure your life and the incredible first world problems we all suffer with a place that, they have real problems. They have real problems. And suddenly saying no to the foods that were comfortable became easier. It became you stretch your measuring stick to look around and say, well, why is this so much different for me to say no when I could do it in Haiti? I could say no in Haiti, and I'd get home and I couldn't say no. So then in 2013, this is one of my favorite family photos. Again, I'm from South Dakota, where pheasant hunting is, well, it's like Christmas. So that's my favorite family picture, where we are trying to show the kids how to skeet shoot. And we're going to field the wheat on our farm. But it's also a time where Grandpa Denton, Chad's dad, had ballooned to a size that, well, it's not sustainable. And we were at his dad's funeral. And at the funeral, it's like looking around a family portrait. And the family portrait had family after family after family that was shaped just like Grandpa Denton. And they really did have, it's just a shocking difference where when you've struggled with somebody and you've been in your life, and then you decide to take on something difficult like losing weight together, and it doesn't crack your marriage. Well, it makes me think of this line where you wake up 15 years later and you've been married for 15 years now. Wow. And I'm going to show you a line that makes me think of this moment in the funeral, where Chad says something to me that I never thought he would say, and that is, he said, "Thanks for being embarrassed about my weight and having the courage to tell me." Because I could have been snarky. I know how to do that. I could have been a real evil woman. But I really, that wasn't my intention. My intention was, how do I show him this is a serious difference? And when I think of that moment, I think of this. I want to see if I can make this happen. Hold on. Don't give up on me. Hang on. Okay. I hope you can hear this.
Love. Golden, do you love me?
Do I what?
Do you love me?
Do I love you?
Well,
With our daughters getting married and there's trouble in the town.
She won't answer it.
You're upset, you're worn out. Go inside, go lie down. Maybe it's indigestion.
no, Golden, I'm asking you a question.
Name the musical if you know it.
Me?
You're a fool.
I know. But do you love me?
Do I love you?
Well.
For 25 years I've washed your clothes, cooked your meals, cleaned your house, given you children, milked your cow. After 25 years, why talk about love right now?
Golden, the first time I met you was on our wedding day. I was scared.
I was shy.
I was nervous.
So was I.
1 minute left.
But my father and my mother said we'd learn to love each other. And now I'm asking, Golden, do you love me?
I cry every time.
I'm your wife.
I know. But do you love me?
Do I love him?
Well?
For 25 years I've lived with him, fought with him, starved with him. 25 years my bed is his. If that's not love, what is?
Then you love me.
You love me. So, my husband does not watch the show, but we've been married 25 years. And in those 25 years, I have been a heck of a hard woman to live with. I am driven and bossy. And at that funeral, when he thanked me for being embarrassed and sharing that real, honest emotion, I'm glad he didn't run away. I'm glad he said, well, tell me the rules on how you do this. So last week when this email went out, it says, honey, we're going to have sardines for our 25th wedding anniversary. He said, oh, you're kidding me. And for those of you that have had, are in the channel, you know I've shared a few videos where, yes, he's been eating them with me. And he also did something that is my big announcement for tonight. Yeah, that's just the best movie, the best play. If you've never seen Fiddler on the Roof, by far the best play, best musical. So let's finish the slideshow because I have something where the last week, husband has had even a couple of epiphanies. So this is our picture from 2019. That's our boys and our girl from China, who is a foreign exchange student who knocked on our door and said, "Can I live with you?" And my husband goes, "Wife, why does she think she can live with us?" I'm like, "I don't know, but it's cold outside. Let her in." And Lindsay's been with us since 2018. She's from, well, near Wuhan, China, which is why she can't go home. But we are happy to have her. I'm her American mom, and that was 2019. Here is just last week, 2023, where we were on the keto cruise together. And yes, my sister and I bought a corset, and I wore it at the keto cruise. So damn, doesn't that make your waistline look little? I sure wish that was how it looked normally. But there's two things that I wanted to talk about. One of them was the sardines that he's agreed to do. And it's just like the first time I asked him to, do a few little things. He didn't want to give up the calories in his drink. That was his comfort. He didn't want the temperature to be colder. He wanted to be comfortable. And a smaller plate size sounds like nothing, but it really is an important progress for eating less. And about 4 weeks ago, I had a drug rep stop by and say the Dexcom7s are out. And if you don't know what this is a continuous glucose monitor that is you put in your arm. And as much as there are several types of continuous glucose monitors, I've really been a proponent for the ones that tell you what it is during the day, during the night, when you're not checking. You wake up, you went for a workout, you didn't go for a workout. And as I eat my sardines, you can see my glucose just went up to 81. It lets you track it back. I don't know if you can see that, all the way along the line, saying the blood sugar is, actually I haven't calibrated this one, so that 60 I should have put that in here. It's a new meter for the day. And so when the drug rep came along, she gave us samples of them, and I brought them home and said, "Husband, I want you to wear this." And he's like, "Oh, didn't you do this to me a couple years ago?" And I said, I know, but this one is even better. And so I brought it home, and I put one in him, one on me, and one in one of our kids. And we all kind of had a contest about what our blood sugars were doing. And they last for 10 days. The cash price for a month worth of these is about $150, give or take. And so you get 3 sensors, and I chose to put one in each of us instead of 3 of them in me. I wanted him to wear one. And by golly, our firstborn versus firstborn took over, and we started saying, "Well, what's your blood sugar?" "Well, you just had a Coke. What did it do to it?" And his blood sugar isn't nearly as perfect as it was when he was 25 or 27, but it's pretty darn good, actually. His sugar is usually better than mine. So the sensors wear out, and about 2 days ago, he said, hey, honey, you got any more of those sensors at work? You think you could bring one home? And of course I said yes, even though I had to go buy it, because I was like, no, it was a sample from the drug rep. Because I said, "Well, you gave me a hard time putting that in and doing that with me. Why do you want it again?" He says, "As much as I chirped about that, I do make better decisions when it's on. And I know I have to see that blood sugar come back when I'm wearing it." So I have been working with getting this option for people without being in a subscription. So you might have known that lots of folks out there that are doing continuous glucose monitors. In my little support group here at the Pin Chasers, we've been kind of testing out the process of how do we step through this to get the prescription to people who want it without the liability. Because we don't want to become your primary care physician, but we do think the access to this is really important. And getting a prescription for it is not difficult. It does take some work from the nurse, and then she and I will maintain it for the year. So we think the cost is going to be around $100 for the year for a prescription that lasts you, that you can fill as many times as you want. But we have an announcement for you tonight. So,
Love.
Oops, that's not. We're going to take that away. No, oops, that's not. Hold on. Shh.
Golden.
Hold on. Okay, I gotta find where that's at. Hold on. It's called video, so I gotta quickly go
Love.
over here and then turn off the video. Yeah. Shh. Sorry. All right. So here's our website, bozmd.com. And I'm just going to show you a couple things. First of all, if you are new to us, we have a ton of people that are new to our channel. We did put this eating guide on sale of 20% off for anybody who's a beginner. If you're saying, how do you do this keto thing? Get this. This is the basics. This is the rules on how you do keto without the books or the workbooks. And when you're done with it, pass it to your neighbor, because it's a pretty great little trick. So I want to show you, if you go to Dr. Boz here and you go to Dr. Boz Favorites, this is how you get a CGM. So you click on Dr. Boz Favorites, and then right there at the top is a continuous glucose monitor. And that, if you click on there, it will link you to Meaningful Medicine, which is my clinic. The clinic, again, there's the phone number up top. I thought I could write on it. I can't write on it. I go through why in the world you would want a continuous glucose monitor, and why the only prescription I will write is a Dexcom7. It is just continuous forward and backward. It is constantly looking at sugars. And you do not need to wear one of these for the rest of your life, but it is just an epiphany of what happens to people when they are trying to find a way to change a behavior, but the feedback of what they're doing is too long. It's not working. So you can go through, read that we aren't trying to be your doctor. We do not want you getting this if you are a diabetic who's taking insulin, but we do want you watching to see what happens when you exercise, what happens when you don't sleep. Being accountable is to see these blood sugars. And when you pick register now, you'll notice there's still no money involved, right? You have to have you have to fill out, become a new patient on this portal. So if I go back over to this and you click down here, new registration, click here. This is how you become, you fill out the process to get a continuous glucose monitor. Once you do that, there'll be some questions that say, hey, we're not going to give you a prescription if you're injecting it for insulin. We're not going to give you a prescription if you've got a severe allergy to the tape. So there's about 6 questions that you answer and fill out. And then afterwards, again, I'm only announcing this on this show for at least until we can work out all the kinks. So if there is anything going wrong, please be nice. Text the number at the top of that form on the landing page if you run into any problems, or send us a message in the portal, because we are looking for folks who want to study their glucose. You still have to pay for the continuous glucose monitor, and insurance does not cover it. We know that there's a bunch of coupons out there now that are, because it's new on the market, it's like, I've seen it as little as $100 a month for 3 sensors. Each sensor lasts 10 days, so 30 days. And we've seen it as high as $180. So we'll send it to the pharmacy that you want, but insurance does not cover this. This is cash pay only. If you want insurance to cover it, you need to go to your doctor. This is just getting people access to that. And we've cut the price in half to process the prescription in hopes that you can help us work out the kinks of anything that isn't working right. And we know it's working like 95% right. There's a few little things. It is amazing. I will wear one of these for as long as my husband continues to wear it, because I think it's really great to watch how much we eat better when we know what our blood sugar is. So there are other programs out there that give you these prescriptions, but they do not. They make you buy a subscription, so you have to pay them every month. We just want to give a one-time processing fee to get you the prescription, and you can refill it as many times as you want or not. You don't have to. But we just think it'd be great that our community has that. All right, so we are gonna hop over, and I'm gonna do one thing live here that I wanted to show you that has to do with continuous glucose monitor, and it has to do with my Sardine challenge, but also that app that I was just showing you. That when people say, oh, you never have to prick your finger again, that is not true. You still have to calibrate your machine. Like I was saying, my glucose at the beginning was 60, but I don't think my monitor has been, I've been really busy today and I have not calibrated it, even though I knew I should have when I put it in this morning. But here we are. So let me check my blood sugar and then I'll show you how you calibrate it, and then we'll go to your questions, because I hope there are some questions about continuous glucose monitors and why we're doing this, but we'll see. All right, so counting down for the glucose, and the meter always wins, so 75. So it's not too far off. My monitor says 80, but I'll go in and I will say, oh, I'm going to show my blood glucose there, and I'm going to use it to log blood. Oh, use it to calibrate. That's what I want. Use it to calibrate. Calibration. Use as calibration. Oh, I got to enter it. Hold on. That's what happens when you do it backwards. Let's try again. Blood glucose. Use as calibration, and it's 75. So I'll type in that 75, and then I'll push save. And now it usually takes about 3 blood sticks to get it to match really perfectly. But it'll be pretty close when it's only from 75 to 80. Sometimes when you first put it on, I wish I would have checked it earlier and had one where my blood sugar was low, and then back up to, since I've started eating, it's up to 75. So I will continue my Sardine challenge through tomorrow. So those of you that join me, it will end tomorrow night, and I am excited to see how everybody else is doing. And I haven't done a Sardine challenge since, well, probably since the 21 days, the last 21 days course. Let's get to your questions here. So I hope you guys like that. Let's see here. That announcement. I really think it's a great tool, and I'm really trying to, again, offer the value of what it's like to be on a ketogenic diet and to have folks. Let's see. I want to see if I could either talk about the continuous glucose monitor or let's do the 72-hour challenge. I think the team has a couple of CGM questions that they're going to paste in here while I get over. Dr. Boz, can you do the Sardine protocol for 72 hours each week instead of fasting? Great question, Joanne B. That is something that we've had lots of people do. Again, when you look at the difference between what I did to my husband, which is give him rules and tell him he needs to follow them, what we're trying to do on the keto continuum is say you have to graduate. Like people say, oh, you know, the grass on the greener is the grass on the other side of the fence always looks greener, right? So when you look at you know, benefits or risks in changing behavior, it always looks like a really good idea. So when we say, oh, let's do a 72-hour fast every week for the next 6 months, no problem. What I tell people to do is don't just do it to check it off the list. Do it mindfully to know, why are we doing that? We're doing that to train you on some eating mindset, that the food you're consuming is meant to be for consumption and nourishment, not for the dopamine pleasure that we really have learned to abuse. Like, oh, have a little sugar and that dopamine surges and you feel better. When I look at people saying, I'm going to do a Sardine fast instead of fasting, and then they never go to fasting, Some people don't need to. Honestly, they lose the weight, their ketones go high, their glucose goes low, they really feel good. And I would contend that most of those people that are able to sardine fast their way through things, the volume of the food on the sardine fast gets lower and lower each time they do it. So again, they're limiting the consumption. That's going to be an improvement. And they don't have severe insulin resistance. Most of the people who follow me on this channel, they look like Grandpa Denton before his funeral. They have a big tummy. They have high insulin. They've had it for a long time. That's what the men look like. The women have different ways they put on their weight, but it is a high insulin gaining weight, and it's stuck. And the chances we're going to reverse that metabolic problem without fasting is pretty unlikely. But you're going to be so much better skilled at limiting your food choices if you've done sardine fast before that. And you get a huge metabolic burst out of it, which is what, honestly, it was shocking to me. I always want to give a shout out to John Ford. He was the first engineer guy who said, here's what happened when I did sardines, and you should do this for this many hours. And I had done it with patients, but I never had them track that closely. And John Ford just really opened up my eyes to say, oh, this will do what I want it to do. I'm still hungry. Even though I usually fast, it's amazing when I know I get to eat. I'm like, oh, I'm going to have my can of sardines. And I'm hungry enough that it tastes good. All right. So here's the questions that I snuck up on them there. So here's the questions. Number one, Naomi, do you have to be in the United States? Yes. So the prescription is good for my prescribing license is good for the United States or the territories, but not Canada. So good question. Not Mexico. CGM, does this keep your information private? Yeah, it's all yours. It's on a dashboard. You can choose to share it with a physician or with another provider. You can choose to share it with family members if you say, hey, let's do a challenge together. And just like if you were a diabetic and you had a child as a diabetic, these continuous glucose monitors, you can hook up the parent to watch that child's continuous glucose monitor, but it really has to come with a lot of permissions. So you can share it, but it's only when you try. So it doesn't share it with anybody else. Nobody's going to know but the people you tell. Okay, so Gina said, Gina, flippin' retired. Love that. I'm not diabetic. I want to try the CGM. Should I ask my doctor first and see if Medicare will cover it? What's your experience? Yeah, here is an absolute, let me save you the headache of this. Medicare will not cover it. Medicare will not cover it. Your insurance will not cover it. Not one single provider out there covers this as somebody who is not insulin injecting diabetic. So even if you're diabetic and you've gotten off your insulin, well, now they aren't going to pay for your continuous glucose monitor. You have to be injecting insulin for insurance to cover it, for Medicare to cover it, for Medicaid to cover it, and then they're going to dictate which CGM they prefer, which one they have the contract with. Nothing compares to the CGM7, those Dexcom7. It's brilliant. It's amazing. Okay, so I have things that I do that are naughty. Like, I love black licorice. Yeah, I love black licorice. And when I miss my parents, when I think of my grandparents, one of their comfort treats for us as kids on the farm was black licorice. So I love it. I love it. It's my favorite. And I'll have a bag of black licorice from time to time and put it in the house. And, when I go to have black licorice, it's not just one piece. It's usually like 6 because it's just so good, right? Yeah, that's the problem. When I put my continuous glucose monitor on, you're like, oh yeah, it starts beeping, and my husband knows. Probably had a few too many of those black licorice, didn't you? And yeah, he knows better than to say that twice. But I quickly course corrected that, all right, most of the pleasure from that black licorice comes from the first bite. And that dang glucose really spikes from black licorice. Nothing beats how well this works. We do encourage you to use something called GoodRx, GoodERX. It's just a coupon that right now has it much cheaper. That's why we're trying to launch it out there, even though we know there's some glitches in the way our system works. You're going to have to go through, answer the questions, sign the document that I have to do it, no matter where you're from or what we're doing, and then know that we don't want to become your primary care. We want to give you this prescription, send it to your pharmacy. We'll send it electronically. If something goes wrong and we need to send it again, that's part of that, your processing fee, no problem. But I don't know, I think it's just a great tool. So Medicare will not cover it. Good question. Let's go to the next one. So Tammy, oh, nice to see you, Tammy. Is the G7 more accurate at lower glucose as compared to G6? Yes. When you look at the one place that it still has competition for G6, it is, I mean, you'll see there are still places where doctors write for G6, and that place is the tubing that goes to an insulin pump. But everything else in G6 it wins by like another, you know how that saying where every 6 months technology increases by 50% and reduces in price? This is a great science experiment to watch, or economic experiment to watch. Every generation of these continuous glucose monitors has gotten so amazing. It's just really impressive. And the accuracy of this one, I mean, it knocks the socks off of everything else. It's impressive. So that's why we're like, get it out to people, let them try it. Right now, these are the rules to get it to you, and we're going to try to be at least that source of that for anybody that stays on alive an hour long, hearing about my 25 years of marriage to my husband through through Fiddler on the Roof. You should get accolades for that. All right, so Aurora says, my sister, who has been this was the one from Aurora, has been proper keto for more than 6 years, is suddenly having serious gallbladder attacks. Why would it become an issue now? That's a good question. So many variables there. Sometimes a gravel that has now, I mean, when you're looking at what's inside a gallbladder, stones usually coalesce together inside a gallbladder if there have been stones. And when they're breaking apart, they kind of sometimes become gravel. Gravel is actually the hardest part on a gallbladder, meaning tiny little stones, not one big one, no problem. It's not going to do anything. I mean, it's not going to get into the hose that drains your gallbladder and get stuck. But those little pieces of gravel can get, when it starts to dissolve and break down, it kind of returns to those smaller little stones. And if that gets stuck in there, it can be a problem. Okay, I am going to call that a night because I'm going to go eat sardines with my husband of 25 years. And I just want to say thank you for those of you that, oh, one more announcement. We do have a career option on our webpage. Oh, Angela's going to love me. I did remember just at the last minute. I'm going to make sure I show this to you. Go over here, go back to this one. Yes. Okay, not that guy. Oh, that's really important. Career. We have a career. We are looking for a video editor, and there are some specifics about the video editor that you'll find inside this career button. If you're a video editor, we need a good one, and we're pretty picky. But I would love it if you are looking for a part-time gig for video editing. Put in the application. All right, guys, good night and thank you. God bless all of you that have been married for 25 or more years, or even just the first few days of marriage. Thanks for checking in, and we will see. Oh, I will not be here on the 4th of July, so we will see you in 2